Yeah, okay, so let me just get over here. I'll get to my, just pull up my chart. There we go. Okay, I'll pull up my chart here. And here's the basic matrix form. You got your chart. There it is, planets and position degrees. Now you look at each degree, and suddenly we're not just looking at a degree. There's this whole texture around each degree. Has all this unique information in it. To make it real, you'd have to begin to study and see how unique each degree is, and add different things of depth, different ways of it. So there's lots of research yet to be done. Lots of ways to expand astrology or deepen astrology, or deepen our awareness of how to use it. But here we have the chart. You'll notice up in the top left-hand corner, they have a thing here, extended, classic, and data. These are different modes. So this is the classic chart, it shows black and white net. If I went to the extended, boom, it would throw it to a color chart where you can have 2 or 3 charts together and stuff like that. It was a newer edition, but I generally work in this. Sometimes I go up to that because on this extended one, you can add the progressions. In, and you get the transits in. Let's just do that just so you can see it. It's a little diversion, but for now, then if you click on there, you can see your natal chart. You send it, you can put your progressions around it, and the transits are around that, so you can get the whole 3-level chart. But there's almost, you can see certain things that tend, but it's nice to have it all together sometimes. But I like to work one planet at a time, and you know exactly where everything is and work it. But graphically, that's the extended section. So we come back to the classic. And there's another section called data. Okay, so you go to data. And here it gives you positions, miscellaneous chart positions. Now this is the chart positions. It gives you geocentric longitude, there's the declination. There's your geocentric latitude, north or south of the orbital plane. So really, it's right ascension and declination is for the equator, and the geocentric longitude and latitude is for the ecliptic. But they give you the positions here. When you look, so what I usually do is I take these and I type them. I really just type them into an Excel spreadsheet. If I'm going to work with it, I typed into an Excel spreadsheet and I got them in order, and then I can sort them to see whether they're plus. Here's one at plus 25, my moon, minus 9. There's Venus at minus 26, but it's 2605. It's more than a degree apart, so they're not contraparallel. This one, Mars at 1642, and Mercury's at 1741. That's within a degree, so they would be parallel. 1741 to 1840, 1740 South Mercury, 1840 North Saturn. They would be contraparallel. So it works like that. You see here, Pluto and Uranus both at 23 degrees, plus 15 or plus 09. So they're going to be parallel. And so you begin to see how they're parallel in declination. Okay, and this is where you look at it. Chart positions. Now, if you go further, there's all kinds of elemental balances, but they count their points a little differently than ours than we do in RASA. So it'll sort planets in different ways, which are the closest, which are the farthest. There's so many techniques here. Planet column, put aspects by planet. What am I calling an aspect grid? Different types of grid. That's the one I like to use because it gives exact positions. They put the totals, how many aspects you have. They put the rulerships in if you're looking at your rulerships. Let's see. We're going down here to, okay, here's a graph. Geocentric longitude and latitude. So this shows the sun to the Earth, and it shows the sun right on the latitude line. It puts the planets north or south of the ecliptic. So you can see there's Uranus, there's Saturn, there's Mars, all close to the ecliptic. They'd be all parallel. Mercury and Jupiter, Mercury and Neptune might be contraparallel. Venus and Pluto look like they're close. They may not be, but you can see where they are by latitude. Okay. Looking at, there's a heliocentric latitude that doesn't have the moon in it. It's basically the same thing, but the right ascension. So here's the latitude and longitude, the first one, the geocentric longitude. Then you look at right ascension and declination. That gives you your equatorial points, north or south of the equator. Now here, all the numbers we saw of my declination, they put the planets here. And they're distributed in this little graph. Now, there's one other factor that I haven't gone into in the drawings, but I do in the workshop, is called up to 23 degrees. The sun can never be more than 23 degrees, 27 minutes north of the equator or south of the equator. And that's within the bounds of the sun. But when the sun's, there are other planets, those suns can be a little bit further north, and they could be north of that 23, 27. That's called out of bounds. So almost all these planets are right on the edge of that, about 23, 27. But my moon is out of bounds. It's gone beyond the normal limit. And my Venus down below has gone beyond the normal limit. So it's my personal life, my Venus, my moon, that goes to extremes beyond what's in the normal. And the others are within range. And then so this is another factor on top of it. It's really interesting, but I'm not going into it in detail here because there's a whole workshop on this specifically that takes a bit more time to study, and I don't want to, with the length of this class, I can just touch on this subject, but I wanted to show you where you got it. We had our classic chart. We go to the data section on WinStar up at the top left here, and then we can get the actual positions here, but we need to have that, or you get a printout of it, or you get a screenshot, you copy it, you have it sitting there. And then when you go down to the further down here, it goes down to all kinds of things, but basically we want the right ascension and declination. That's our declination. Then it puts it here, and it puts them in a graph so you can see them north or south of the equator. That's really useful. Everybody's is different. Okay, so this is dealing with the up and down side of a degree. Okay, I'm going to come out of this. So you come out just one last time. You turn on your chart. You got your chart and matrix. You go to the data section. You scroll this down because there's a whole bunch of stuff, and there'll be a graph right ascension and declination, and there it is. Then you can print it out. Then you got it, or you screenshot it. You got a color copy of it. Okay, so there's the planets moving around the degrees of the zodiacs, which we have measured in our chart along the red lines. But they're going north or south, and as they do, they're going really north or south of the equator. And we're measuring them in the houses, but as we're measuring in the houses, something strange can happen. You can have planets in your first house that are actually in your 12th, or planets in your 12th that are actually in your first house because of how high or low they are, how in the latitude. So we're going to come more to this in this comparison between the two. So in this drawing, you can see the ecliptic and you see the equator. It's centered, the Earth is in the center. The equator is going across at parallel. The equator eclipse. And you can see the Tropic of Cancer. The sun can go up to this Tropic of Cancer. You know, then the ecliptic goes up there 23 degrees and 27 minutes, or Tropic of Capricorn. So the sun can move up and down. That's 46, 54 degrees, 54 minutes, going north or south in its cycle. Okay, now on top of this, as it goes north or south, it's going to be above certain places on the Earth and below certain places on the Earth. So there's a whole other texture that you can go and try and understand. Well, there's something's happening here. You don't know what it is, do you, Mr. Jones? There's something going on here. And we're trying to tune in and just, all I'm saying is to be alert of these things. So when a phenomenon like this is happening, the sun reaches its highest point, or something goes out of bounds, it's going to be for a time, and that time will last in your progress chart. It'll be there a time in your chart. It's going to be there for times and represent different phases of your life, which may or may not stand out. Okay, so here's a drawing of a degree, half a degree going north, half a degree going south. Okay, if you're looking at it, I mean, if you have the degrees around a chart on an 8.5 by 11 page, you have your chart printed out. 1 degree is pretty thin, right? It's probably just a little bit bigger than the thickness of a pencil, of the head of a pencil. Well, the dot from the head of a pencil, that's about the size of the sun and the moon. Half a degree is how you would see it. That's how big the sun and moon would actually be. And the planets, the largest of the planets are like 1/1 of a degree. 1/60th of that degree size. So we're looking at the actual planets. They're really tiny on that chart. Huge in space, but we're making them big symbols so we can see them and relate to them easily. But in fact, they're really tiny points on that chart. And those tiny points have an up and down effect. So each 10 degrees is like a different category that collects information. Each degree collects information, but as you go through 90 degrees north, 90 degrees south, there's 180 degrees of influences. Those include the stars. The planets will only stay within the 10 degrees. They'll be only at the small part, but the idea was to get a sense of that. And again, here we have the picture of the North Pole celestial for the ecliptic and 1 degree with various stars in it. So when you look at a chart, it's like it's supposed to spring up at you like some kind of animation or 3D thing when you're looking at this flat thing. Lots of cartoons have this flat image that turns up and comes up into 3-dimensional life. It might be fun to do that. Okay. Okay. Here's a good example. This is what I want to get to. When you're looking at stars, normally we work with stars. We're going to have a class on stars, so we work with a degree orb and the star. But when you have a star, here's the ecliptic. This is a star at a certain degree of the ecliptic. Say it's Arcturus, 23 degrees something of Libra. It's going to be there to the ecliptic. The degrees are measured by 90 degrees. They go up and down 90 degrees perpendicularly to the axis, to the equator. But so to the ecliptic, so the ecliptic is the red line, but if you're measuring it from the equator, it's the blue line. Okay. Well, that's a really two different points. So every star has 2 points of influence, one in the houses, one in the signs. That's why technically they should be 2 different circles and looked at separately. Okay, now same thing south. So that one you saw how they can reach that way. If you're looking south, it can go. So boom, there's still a difference. There's very few places where they get closer as you get closer to the ecliptic. But even then, because they're on an angle, there's always a difference in what stars, what things are in the degree. Now, if you look at this red line for the ecliptic and take the blue line going to the equator, if you continue it on, that blue line will have a point where it touches the ecliptic. It'll be a degree where it touches it. There's a second, so we're watching the transits go along to touch one point. There's another point that's related to the same crisis time. There's a 2-point hit for almost every transit. And we're not really watching it. That's why it's a bit fuzzy. You don't look for the exact day always, because there's something comes up and it has an effect, it carries on until it hits the other effect, or something starts and builds up until it hits. So there's 2 points, the effect of this. So again, this is a drawing with the 7 degrees. So there's the ecliptic and where the planets can be, and there's the equator, how they can come along. So with the exception of Pluto, all the planets are going along this path. This arrow would go along, showing how the transits are going along and moving that way. All the arrows are playing the way the planets are going, unless it's going retrograde for a while.